What is up, everybody, and welcome to FLW Videos. In today's episode, we're going to be covering the highly anticipated, the long awaited for Eevee Community Day Guide. This is actually going to be happening in August, and the time period is going to be from August 13th, 10 a.m. until Monday, August 16th, 10 a.m. And then within that, we're actually going to get 2 Community Day hours, and that's going to be happening on August 14th and then August 15th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. local time. So we're basically getting an Eevee Community Day weekend, which is pretty insane. We of course had one of those with the exclusive move Last Resort, but it's way more complicated this time because every Eeveelution is getting a different move. So we're going to be taking a look at all these Eeveelutions from the raid side, from the PvP side, discussing if there are any upgrades and some potential for what I would be doing for the Community Day weekend. But anyways, if you do enjoy this deep dive series, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. So this episode's going to be run a little bit different than what we would normally do for the deep dive series, and that's simply because there are 8 Eeveelutions that we could talk about. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I actually made a video talking about the top Eeveelutions in Pokemon Go from the raid side, PvP side. Functions very similar to the normal deep dive series, but it only focuses on their original movesets. So if you're interested in that, make sure to check out the link to that video in the description. But beyond that, what we're going to be talking about today is specifically isolated to these new moves so that we can figure out if the Pokemon ends up getting an upgrade or a downgrade for that. And as you can see, it's fairly complex because each of the Eeveelutions is getting a different move, which is pretty interesting. I personally think that that's cool, but it basically makes it more complex, right? But some of these Pokemon are going to make no sense for us to cover from the raid side. For example, we've got Vaporeon here with Superpower. It's not all of a sudden going to become meta relevant from that fighting type, so we're not going to cover that. And instead, from the raid side, I want to take a look at Vaporeon. I want to take a look at Jolteon because they're getting a move that is the same type attack bonus, so they're getting that stab bonus. And then we also can see that Leafeon is getting itself a grass type move as well on the fast move. And then finally, out of just pure interest, I want to take a look at Espeon with Shadow Ball. And if you think about past Pokemon such as a Mewtwo with Shadow Ball, it ends up performing very well as a pseudo ghost type attacker. And then a little bit further down, another Pokemon such as Alakazam ends up functioning as a great pseudo type attacker with Shadow Ball. So I'm very interested in covering Espeon. Now, of course, there are going to be some other major benefits that you would want to take advantage of for this event, just kind of regardless of the moveset. I think that being able to evolve Eevee into Sylveon requiring only 7 hearts is incredible. You're going to be able to do this multiple times throughout the event. So we've kind of been locked out of using Sylveon, at least in my opinion, where you use the buddy trick and then, or the buddy name trick, or you have to gain 70 hearts. That's just way too much. So if you want to get yourself a team of Sylveon, this event is easily the time to do that. But let's go ahead and dive into the actual movesets and the actual performances themselves. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the Pokemon Vaporeon first, going up against a Mega Camerupt. This is going to be double weak to the water typing. So we can see that Vaporeon, as is in at the 25th position, including Shadow Pokemon, Mega Pokemon, all of that. If you take Shadows out, Vaporeon gets to the 16th position. So all in all, not bad. So what the heck is going to happen with Scald? If you go ahead and use Scald, it actually gets a decrease in the performance, which is unfortunate, right? But Scald does get off a little bit quicker. So yes, just using Scald makes it a worse performance, but there's at least a discussion that I need to have. And we've had a couple Pokemon do this in the past. If you've got a move like Hydro Pump, for example, that takes forever to finally get off, and then you've got a move like Scald, which can go off much quicker. Let's say you're going into a raid and you end up using your moves and you're building up to a Hydro Pump, but you're not going to quite get there before the raid boss takes you out. If you've got enough energy, though, to get off the move Scald, you're technically going to be doing more damage. So yes, it is going to be an upgrade if you use Scald and Hydro Pump and mix between the two throughout the raid, but is it worth it to be able to do that? I'm probably going to say no, because it costs you 50,000 Stardust just to unlock that secondary charge move. So it is a little bit unfortunate, but I do think that that is a niche situation that I at least need to mention because it can technically apply to 3 out of the 4 raids that we're going to be talking about today. Yeah, a lot of fun with that one. But anyways, let's go ahead and dive into the next one. We've got going up against Mega Swampert, taking a look at Leafeon. So Leafeon actually has a pretty good moveset already with Razor Leaf and Leaf Blade. And in this particular case, we are at the 13th position, including Shadow. So not too bad there. And then, of course, in this particular case, we've got a quick move that is going to be the upgrade for it. And Leafeon is going to end up getting Bullet Seed. And when you use Bullet Seed, you actually drop in the performance and you end up right around, right past Shadow Vileplume. So in the 16th position. So unfortunately, in this particular case, it is also a downgrade for Leafeon, and unlocking secondary charge move to do that, it doesn't matter in this case because it is a quick move. So unfortunately, 2 out of 2 so far have been a downgrade. Now let's go ahead and get into the third one where we can take a look at Jolteon. So Jolteon is in a similar situation that we talked about, where Jolteon actually has a pretty good moveset already. It's got Thunder Shock, and then it's got Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt is a pretty good electric type move. We're going up against the Gyarados. And then if we go ahead and check out the new move, Zap Cannon, Zap Cannon is not a good move. So it ends up being a downgrade where you're actually behind Shadow Porygon now, and probably a little bit further down, to be honest. That time to win goes from 104 to 114, and that may not seem like a lot, but we're going up against a tier 3 raid boss, so just kind of keep that in mind. 10 seconds means a lot more than going up against like a legendary raid boss, for example. So far we're seeing 3 out of 3 are actually a downgrade from the raid side, and then of course some of those other Pokemon are literally not even relevant from the raid side, such as Flareon getting superpower, so nothing new is happening out of that. So unfortunately, no good news so far. And then finally, if we get into the last Pokemon, Espeon, I genuinely was so excited about this one. This was probably the one that I anticipated to get the best performance out of. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. Now, if we go up against an Azelf, you're of course not going to see a Pokemon like Espeon up on this list because beforehand it didn't have access to a Ghost type move. Now it has the move Shadow Ball. But when you take a look at the performance, it ends up getting a time to win of 781. And if you check this out, I mean, it's literally not within the top 30. So I was definitely disappointed with this. So technically, is it a downgrade? No, because in this particular case, it never had access to the move of a Ghost type move. So Shadow Ball gives it an upgrade from the Ghost typing compared to nothing. But when you go ahead and put it into the relative performance, unfortunately, Espeon doesn't, I would not call this a good result by any means. So unfortunately for Espeon, it ends up being on the lower end, and I don't think it ends up being meta relevant. So none of them got an upgrade from the raid side, which is, at least in my opinion, a bit of a letdown. So I can understand why people would be a little bit frustrated from the moves, especially if you were interested in the raid side. But if the raid side's a disappointment, then surely there's some positives on the PvP side. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So PvPoke ended up tweeting about the Pokemon that people are going to be most interested that have the best potential from the PvP side. And the first one is Sylveon with Psyshock. Now, initially, people thought that Sylveon was going to be a great Pokemon from the PvP side. But what basically ended up happening is, yes, it's pretty good, but it ends up failing in comparison to a Pokemon like Togekiss, especially if you're talking about Master League and Master League Classic. So Sylveon is just like the second best fairy type attacker. And of course, people would rather go with Togekiss since it is better. But in this particular case, getting that move, Psyshock, gives it a little bit more flexibility, and it could end up performing better than Togekiss in niche situations. So Sylveon is going to be a major upgrade compared to Sylveon beforehand without that move, Psyshock. And then finally, we've got Psychic Umbreon. Now, Psychic Umbreon could be a popular choice among the Great League as well as the Ultra League. Now, the Ultra League is going to require XL Candy, so we'll definitely be talking about that. But they actually had a little bit of a follow-up for Psychic Umbreon and what you should actually end up doing with this. And they're basically saying don't Elite TM your existing Umbreons, because you may be kind of considering, okay, Psychic, Last Resort, a move like Dark Pulse or Foul Play, what the heck are you going to do? Well, the recommendation is that Psychic and Last Resort are both good moves. They both have pros and cons, so they recommend having just the regular dark type move on all of your Umbreons, and then the second move should either be a Last Resort or it should end up being this new Psychic moveset, and they're going to have pros and cons, but it makes more sense to just have two since they are exclusive moves. You're not going to be able to TM them easily, so there are going to be pros and cons for that. So there are at least some upgrades right from this PvP side, but all in all, at least in my opinion, it is a bit of a disappointment as far as the performance of these Pokemon is concerned. You're not seeing any value from the raid side. You're barely seeing any value from the PvP side. So you're kind of curious as to like what the heck you should do, kind of thinking about this community day. At least for me, something that I think makes the most sense, first of all, it's going to be XL Candy. Getting yourself XL Candy, having a whole weekend, this is going to be your chance. If you already have yourself an Umbreon that you want to get powered up for the Ultra League, now's your chance for the XL Candy. And then finally beyond that, I think that Sylveon only requiring 7 hearts as opposed to 70 hearts, that's going to be the biggest highlight, getting yourself some of the Sylveons. And we didn't talk about Sylveon, but it ends up being like the 4th or 5th best fairy type attacker on the raid side. So there is value out of these Eevees, but it's really just getting your resources and maybe skipping the community day moveset and then just opting for their regular moveset. So sometimes that ends up happening in Pokemon Go, where you just kind of utilize all of the features of the event to get access to candy, resources, that type of thing, and maybe hold off on evolving. But I definitely want to know what you think about the Eevee Community Day in the comment section below. Is there a Pokemon and its moveset that you are most excited about? Let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you next time. But not without giving a huge shout out to the supporters over at Patreon. We have been having so many people join lately, and it's so much fun over on the Patreon exclusive Discord server. So if you're interested in that, connecting with other Pokemon Go players, make sure to check out the Patreon page in the link in the description, and I will see you next time.